Hi guys, welcome back. From our last session, we managed to get the blockout stage for Donatello done. His proportions roughly where I wanted him, and his silhouette needs a little bit more work. So we'll be doing that today, and I want to focus on making sure that all the pieces stand out uh, on its own, right? Like from afar, you can tell, okay, this is that piece, or for example, his goggles, right? It's like, oh, what type of goggles do I want? But that comes with a lot of trial and error. Because, for example, this mask piece that I wanted to have, Donnie to have, despite being something I wanted, I just couldn't get the mask to fit really with Donnie. He like because it covers so much of his mouth. From afar, you would just think it's a person, right? Like a human person, rather than a turtle. So I ended up changing the design quite a bit, um, but that's just part of the process for me. Like I really wanted it, but I just had to find a way to make it fit in the design. Yeah. Um, yeah. I mean, this part's like oh, how would this object be interesting to look at from afar? And could you tell what type of object it was? There's a lot of thought process I go through when making each piece, without actually knowing it. Like it's pretty much like a subconscious um, process for me right now. I find it really difficult to explain why I like it that way. It's just one of those elements where it just overall makes the piece interesting for me anyway. So that's how I tackle a lot of the design elements. Um, yeah, I mean, I go through a lot of stages where like I try to make it work, and then I force it, but then it doesn't work. But then I try a different method. Uh, I think hopefully later down the line, when I've done so much of one like piece, I know how to recreate it one to one. So this whole like refining process, like I have to separate each piece uh, accordingly, uh, just for the piece to really look good. Because if I did it all in one like mesh, some of the flow creases won't really stand out, and I find that having it all separate pieces kind of like uh, gives that extra level of detail or realism to the piece. So I always throw that process in. Mm. I guess at this stage I'm just looking at the overall body, making sure all the pieces kind of stand out. Uh, yeah, it's a interesting process. I find anyway, because for the longest time I would probably get really annoyed, like oh it just doesn't look great, and then just be demoralized, right? But then I'm now at the point where if I don't like it, I'm okay with just like almost scrapping the piece of paper and throwing it in the bin, right, and starting another design. Um, I think it's just fun for me that way. Yeah, I didn't like the mask so much, I just got rid of it, right? Uh, I think it's me just trying to change his like overall mouth slash nose. I did mention when I was making this, like, oh, it reminds me of the turtles from Super Mario Bros. Um, a bit too close, so I had to change that a little bit. But yeah, this is just me like keeping with the shapes and stuff. Yeah, making his head narrow or more narrow. Yeah, so it looks a bit longer. Mm. Just me desperately trying to have the pieces separated more, so once it prints, it doesn't just blend in all together. But it was quite difficult with so many pieces like covering his body. It was like almost really unnoticeable, but I'll get there. Yeah, this is me trying to figure out the headpiece functionality, right? It's like, oh, if he was gonna put it on his eyes, like how would it actually work? Distance wise and rotation, where it would rotate from, was quite important in terms of a mechanical level. I felt would actually uh, make it more believable, because essentially I could just make like any goggle, right? Put it into place, but for me, I I have to make sure it would work if it was like in a real scenario. Um, I don't know if that's just like over time of my like thought process of how a object works, or if it's just like makes the model more believable. I'm not too sure yet. Yeah. So he's even working on that goggle, right? Just scrap it, just start again. It's like, oh, don't like this design. Just give him a new one, right? Yeah. I think here I tried to give him just like regular goggles, but it was quite not interesting. Looked like a military soldier. Wasn't great. Hmm. Yeah, even trying to scrap the idea of like putting it on his head, right? But if I put it on his neck, his silhouette just gets lost on his head. Just a round, smooth head. I wanted the hat to be on top, or the goggles to be on top. Yeah, so I got through a lot of designs with the goggles. I just couldn't find one that I really stuck with me. Um, you know, finding where the straps would be placed. Does it even look good? You know, it was a very difficult object for me to design. Um, Even with the references I had, I think I just chose the wrong references, and essentially, because all the goggles I chose was kind of really high tech, but later down the line, because of how high tech and clean and crisp they look, it didn't really fit with Donatello, right? Uh, some random nose goggles. I don't know what that is. A single lens. Yeah. Oh, yeah. This is the part where I finally decide where I want the mask to be. It's basically just a neck piece, and he can pull it up if he wants to. But when I have him, it'll be just below his chin, so you can see that mouth curve. So yeah, we just start working on getting Donny some different gadgets. Right now, all his pouches doesn't give any variety, right? So I want to break that up by giving some other gadgets that have different shapes. Um, yeah, here I give him like a old flip phone type of gizmo. You know, I was thinking of giving him like antennas as well, but I was kind of worried that it wouldn't gonna print very well. So I just left it quite plain and simple for now. And here's his like a scanner device that I fondly remember from one of the old cartoon series where they fight like giant aliens from the pizza, uh, you know, episode. Um, and like Donnie had this gizmo to like scan for them. Yeah, I thought that was a nice little device that Donnie could have. Later down the line, I probably want to have him have different gadgets, but I have to consider like how it's gonna print as well, because a lot of his gadgets are kind of wiry. You know, they're all open, exposed, kind of aesthetic. So I want to see if I can try to get that general idea, but have it so it's printable, and then there's no real like headache. You know, even though like for example, in the last model of Mikey, right, the nunchucks came out really well, but it was only because I had the like consideration of how it will print. If I did it any thinner, it might not have printed really well. Yeah. Mm. Deciding on where which position for his scanner to be. Adjusting his size of his body. I realized that I went back and forth with like the size of his lower torso a lot because I couldn't get the size I was really happy with that. Wouldn't leave a lot of empty space in the print, so I was got in two minds with that. And yeah, I mean, the lower part is always the hardest part for me. I want to have a quite a balance, like not like complete balance where um, you know, the top part of it Donny's is just as dense as the bottom. I want it to have a little bit of features, but not too much, you know. Um, just because then, if like his top part is like completely covered with like gadgets, but his like legs area is kind of like bare. Um, the model itself just feels really unfinished, right? It's just not at that stage yet. I feel like I do get the balance quite well. Uh, oh, I'm quite happy with that. Maybe I could adjust something with his like thigh area, because right now there's just this giant empty space. But we'll see. We'll see what I take with it. Yeah, here's me refining the shell, getting a more distinct look to it. Very thin, soft shell species. Donnie is a soft shell turtle, I believe. Just get some nice lines, some sharp lines, but have it somewhat different from the other brothers, but you know, unique to his own. That really, that part was to emphasize like a very thin part of the shell, um, just so like how I would imagine it is his head going in, right? Like, would it be able to, retract? Um, he's like staff holder, yeah, bowl. Give him some ninja cloth-like shoes. Yeah, just making a cleaner variant. Give it some extra layers for interest. Mm. Yeah, maybe I will put something on the thigh. But I like the gap, but I also don't like the gap, so maybe I just make the gap smaller by increasing the knee. That's like the balance I find with Donny. It's quite hard because there's gadgets all over the place, and I don't want one area to be more condensed than the next, right? I kind of want it to be evenly spaced out. Um, Now there is like techniques where if you put objects all in a certain area, right, the eye just naturally are drawn towards it, you know. So that would be called a center focus when coming to designing. I haven't got it quite down yet. I'm very much of a all-round balance type of artist, I guess. But yeah, that just comes with over time and what I like and what I don't like. So yeah. But yeah, that's more gadgets, you know, get them in the position, get some more variety. But yeah, so thank you for watching, guys. I'll see you guys in the next episode.